All right, John, here we go.
Oh,
You ready?
yep.
All right. How you doing, everybody? Thanks for joining in. John, just FYI, we already have about 20 people watching, and this is John Butchko, who is running for Ohio's 7th Congressional District, which, if you guys have been watching the other candidates that were here talking about their primary race, this is a congressional district that includes half of Cuyahoga County, all of Medina County, half of Wayne, and all of Ashland County. And John is one of the 8 candidates that is running as a Democrat for Congress. John, how are you doing? How are you doing? Thanks for coming in.
I'm doing quite well. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, John. We're going to start where everybody starts. Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and why are you running for Congress, and why are you running now?
I'm a retired Methodist minister who has served in many of the communities that are now in the 7th District. I've been in Brunswick and Westlake and Medina, Medina Township, Marshallville, and Wayne County. I've been both United Methodist and served as interim as Lutheran pastor, but it's what prompted me to run now is some editorials by the New York Times in which the conservative editorial person talked in terms of how he does not like the current state of the Republican Party. And I got used to listening to him. Then he had an editorial on what's wrong with the Democratic Party. And it said, we're basically without driven leadership, and that it's not going to come from the party establishment, it's going to come from the grassroots. And so with 8 people running, I think we have a wonderful opportunity to spend some time in conversation about who the Democratic Party could be and how we could be a bigger party than just more the academic, progressive, like religious people, and be a much more party that understands the working people and understands how hard it is to make it forward in the United States today.
And I have to touch on something you mentioned there. You said academic. We do have an academic that is running in this race who happens to be a PhD.
I have degrees. I'm not against education. It's good, but we can be our suburban elitist, and that's only going to reach so many people.
Understood, John. So what you mentioned why you came in now. What are 3 to 5 policies that you want to tackle if you become the congressman of Ohio's 7th district?
I think first, just to emphasize the value of work, as Sherrod Brown does, to emphasize that federal policy really needs to help the working person. First of all, just need to get people to know they need to work, and then get people for work to work for them. And second, I think a big issue is just to understand that healthcare is just critically important, and we probably need to have a national conversation about how we take care of people. And then I think in terms of, we all should understand that security at the border has its very important place, but that our immigration and work visa program should be clear, should be compassionate, and we should be welcoming people who want to come and be productive in the United States. So those 3 would be my 3 issues.
So you mentioned, progressive, and those words. It sounds like you have like, I don't want to say common sense. You have a law and order idea of saying, like, hey, you know what, we need border security, but we also have to understand that we're an immigrant nation. You also said healthcare as a nation, we have to address that. Does that mean that you are healthcare for all? And how would you put yourself, if I was going to put you in a box, would you say a common sense progressive, or how would you describe yourself?
Common sense or even compassionate progressive. And I would say, and I learned this from a very conservative parishioner in a Lutheran church on the West Side, who said, we could offer Medicaid for all, and it's just a question of paying for it. But that's a doable thing. But this person would say Medicare for all kind of diminishes those who have it as an accrued benefit. But to say we ought to provide Medicaid for all actually has some good sense.
So without talking, I mean, well, Pam asked, and these questions, as you know, I shared them with you, and as I shared with every other candidate, these questions come from your constituents. Some of them are in Cuyahoga here. I know some of them in Wayne and Medina, and if some are from Ashland, I haven't met them personally, but there could be some here from Ashland. But Pam, she asks, um, how do you stand out from these other 8 candidates? Again, this is a choice that people are going to make at the polls, and I have not seen a primary like this in a long time, and so this is going to be who stands out and who's going to get those votes, or the majority of those votes. And so how do you differentiate yourself from the other 7? Excuse me.
I don't. But what I would say is what's critically important is for the 8 of us to find time to talk about what should be the Democratic policy and perspective for the 7th district, and then commit for all of us that we will work for the election of the best possible candidate together. And that my hope is, it's not that I'm the nominee, but my hope is that all of us will see that we have to have a better message than what we've been giving.
And and thank you, by the way, for the concise answers. I appreciate that. But what do you think the venue of that would be? So look, you have 6 people. We have Keith coming on tomorrow on the show, and you have 6 people have been on the show so far. 2 others are still uncommitted. Uh, and if you want to talk to everybody, a lot of people are sharing ideas here on this show. But where do you think the venue, and how do you think that would happen if you were all to get together? What do you propose to everybody?
Well, we are potentially getting together this Saturday in Wayne County at the public library for a candidates forum. And I think for us just to understand, it's not about any one of us having the greatest ideas. It's about all of us together coming up with a real good understanding of what average Americans need, hope, want, without coming in with some preconceived notions as to what it has to be.
Understood. Well, I'm happy you guys are all doing that. I just learned about the Wayne County Candidate Forum. When is that, and where is that? Can you tell us really quick, so make sure that anybody who's going to be reading this from Wayne knows?
I'm not looking at my notes right now, but I believe it is on Saturday at 1 p.m. at the public library.
Okay, excellent. And fair enough. I mean, I would have to look at my calendar as well. Pat asks, why are you a Democrat, and why are you running as a Democrat, and how do you define that?
Well, I see the Democrats as the party that ultimately, historically, at least in my lifetime, and I was born in 55, so it covers some period, that it's the party that created Social Security, pushed for Medicare. It's the party that has thought that wealth and the rules and the policies should be broadly available to all or many.
So you're so to summarize that, you're saying that historically the Democrats have fought for the progressive ideas that you mentioned earlier, and therefore you feel that they're the party that aligns mostly with how you feel the country should go.
That would be correct. Thank you.
Yeah, yes, sir. Absolutely. I'm here to make it easy for everybody. I appreciate it. Listen, I want to talk about your campaign and strategy, and Barb wrote in, and she's just very direct. She says, if you won the primary, what would be your plan to beat Max Miller?
Hopefully the 7 others would band with me, as I would band with whoever wins, to have 8 people out canvassing, promoting a common idea of a good idea, and just the best way forward in kind of the quagmire that we currently are.
And part of that, and everybody banding together, is we see a lot of action and a lot of votes over here in Cuyahoga County, but a lot of people want to make sure that the rural counties are reached. And so one thing that Steve asks, who's a union organizer, he wants to understand, like, how will you be able to reach across not only to the rural, the more rural suburb parts of the district, the more urban suburb parts of the district, but also the country of the district parts. Like, how do you bring that together? It's such a diverse district.
Well, I have, through the years of being pastor in many rural communities, I have visited and attended a whole lot of county fairs. I have visited and attended a whole lot of community events. I've lived much of my life in smaller towns. I've lived in South Amherst, Milan. They're not in this district. Lived in Brunswick, served churches like Marshallville. In the last presidential election, I think there were 2 Biden signs in the whole town. And
Mm.
yes, but the people of the church in Marshallville were absolutely some of the finest people in the world that I've ever met. So if you look at people who live in small towns and live in less than stellar housing, if you look at them and just see the decency of, like, I have a friend who drives by a trailer park mobile home community, and she just says, there's nothing but a bunch of rednecks and low class people that live there. And I'm like, no, that's where a whole lot of America lives there, and they are good people. They're wonderful people. And somehow those are the people we need to just make it clear we think they're good. They're as good as anybody in any suburb.
Everyone, I'm talking to John Butchko, who is running for U.S. Congress in Ohio's 7th district. And if you're watching live here, as about 30 of you are right now, please feel free to ask any questions to John. Just put them in the chat, and I'll get them when I scroll over there, as I do quite often, and see them, and I'll ask John. Scott asks, and he asked, when we're talking about the rural areas, will you establish a local presence in the rural areas? Because here, let me frame this question to you, John. Is when we're talking about the rural areas, everybody goes to the rural areas. People are going to go to Wayne County, like for your forum, when they're looking for votes. Then when they go into office, they don't go down there again until they're looking for votes again. What are you going to do to make sure that they feel that they're represented?
If elected, I would make the district office, primary office, probably in Lodi, which would be just centrally located to the geographic area. I don't know where Max Miller's office is, but I would make mine in Lodi.
Okay. I just had to look at a map. Let me see here. Moving on over. You one thing you have in your background, and it is, as being a pastor of a Methodist church. You've mentioned this multiple times during the conversation so far. When we talked about going to rural areas, you said, I've been to church there. I know people there. Um, Faith is a big part of your life. It's a big part of a lot of people's lives. But there, we do have a separation of church and state. How do you feel about that separation? How do you, as somebody who's so deep in faith, manage that separation? And what do you think about that separation?
Thomas Jefferson did us all a favor by saying that there's not going to be an established religion, and I don't want my religion to be the established religion, although I would confess that the Methodist Church did like to be a power broker at one time. We did pass something, I think it was the 19th Amendment, didn't turn out so well. prohibition, and I think that's what happens when religion tries to drive, particular religions drive their particular theological positions onto the country. I also think it has been occurred with people who are opposed to women having very basic reproductive rights. And I don't think we can promote what we think our God or our understanding of religion. But I think when we say everyone has to follow our view, I think that's when we get in trouble.
So what is your opinion on reproductive rights?
I think it's very much a similar to a stand your ground policy in terms of protecting one's private property. I think women need to be able to make the decisions for themselves with their doctor over their medical issues.
You mentioned thank you for that. Again, we sent out these questions, but if you say something that sparks my interest, I'm definitely going to ask you about it. But you mentioned that you have the faith, you separated church and state. Thomas Jefferson did us all a favor, that there's not going to be a established religion of the United States of America, but it would be very hard to, I guess, come to legislation or the Congress without that background with you. How will faith influence your decisions and your policymaking in Washington D.C. and how do you think that it influences others?
Well, I think I'll be for kindness, sharing our help with people. I I don't think it will be a detraction. I think it will be an asset, as I think anybody's deepest held values, other than greed, will be an asset to governing and developing national policy.
Understood. Understood. I'm gonna move over to some. Let's see here. You mentioned healthcare, but I'm just gonna make sure that we understand your positions on healthcare. This came from Dr. Sweeney, Liz Sweeney, Liz Sweeney, who's also an RN, and also Deb, and they want to know about. And we already had your answer, but I want to make sure that it is in its own section. Um, will you support universal healthcare?
In that question, my answer would be will support a concept such as Medicaid for all.
Understood. And if we don't get to Medicaid for all, there's a lot of people. I think 1/3 of Cuyahoga County, for example, is on some sort of Medicaid or Medicare. What would you do? And obviously, we know the subsidies fell off for people, or will fall off soon for some people, and a lot of people are losing coverage in some shape or form, or it's harder to get. How will you maintain, and would you maintain Medicaid coverage for Ohioans? And would you try to get back, say, the subsidies? Would you try to expand it in light of, say, you cannot have a Medicaid for all?
I lost your sound. I would say some aspects won't totally know until I am totally grasping and have access to all information. Some things are going to be state decisions, as they are now, and they should be. And some states will respond better than others, and that's not the greatest, but it is a reality.
And how so? Meaning that, like for example, the Medicaid subsidies are not there anymore. Would you bring them back? Would you vote to bring them back so people can lower their healthcare costs?
You're saying the Medicaid subsidies as well as the subsidies for the Affordable Care Act. Is that what
Yes,
you're
yes, that is
asking?
exactly what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. Yes.
I, the one, I mean, and part of it will be, I think we should be able to mostly admit we can't just randomly raise taxes or put tariffs on all kinds of things to pay for everything. But I do think healthcare should be a priority, and some of the answer is going to be more on a state basis and a more on a local basis than always on a federal government trying to develop one size fits all. If you look at many organizations that try to provide national health insurance for their members, it becomes very expensive. But when they can do it on a more regional basis, sometimes there's advantages.
Okay, understood. I'm gonna move over to economic policy and working class issues. Linda asks, is there any tax codes or anything that you would change to the current tax code that would help the working class?
I the whole concept of unforeseen results or unexpected consequences of action kind of constantly kind of constantly kicks us. The one proposal I would make in regards to tax policy, I would say that there will be a business tax on any income that the business any incomes that they pay that are over the the maximum ceiling for Social Security. So once they're no longer kicking in for somebody on Social Security, they would stop paying that payment, but they would instead begin paying a business tax on essentially high incomes.
Okay. So is this for businesses, or do you think that the maximum Social Security threshold should also be raised? Right now, I can't remember what it is, 153,000 or something. If you make up
Just
to
a
that,
little
and
bit
then it's not
above
taxed
what
after
you and
that.
I make, right, Matt?
I'm sorry. Excuse me.
It's just a little bit above what you and I make, right?
I guess so. But would you raise it?
I My understanding is by constitution you can only have one income tax on individuals. So I would
Hmm.
say I wouldn't raise it on individuals, but I would put it as a business tax. And I would also say that I would businesses, I'm going to guess, are well aware that how this would help working people is I think at present time businesses are aware that it's cheaper to give their top executives a bonus than it is to give their average hourly workers the same percent as a raise because their highest paid people, they don't have to pay the employment tax, but on their entry level and all other workers, they do. So I think it would have an indirect benefit on the working class, but it would be the one significant tax proposal that I would put out there.
That's actually a really good thought, and I haven't thought about that. And you gave me something to think about right now. Hmm. Oh, I'm gonna stew on that, and
Good.
I'm move to the. Go ahead.
Good. Stewing is good for you.
Okay, I'm definitely gonna stew. Um, Bill asked, "What do you think about insider trading in Congress?" And again, I'm gonna set this up for you a little bit for the viewers. Um, there is insider trading. No matter how people want to frame it, their wife or their spouse or their husbands or whatever, they say that they're making the trades that has nothing to do with them, and they don't tell them about the bills that they're passing in Congress. But yet, it seems that the people who are in Congress and their spouses some of the best traders stock traders on the planet, beating Warren Buffett, beating the people on Wall Street, beating the trading bots. They're excellent at this, but there's not really much consequences. So what do you feel about stock trading in Congress? And also, what do you feel about spouses and relatives trading stocks when you are in Congress?
This is new information. I should have run for Congress years ago if I had known this. I think we need to stop figuring out ways of people to to be able to get ahead other than hard work. I somehow, as a country, we need to learn to be less greedy. Religion has failed us all. We're not supposed to be greedy, but yet we're really greedy.
You see, so you say we need Jesus.
Buddha, Muhammad, Confucius, we need them all.
Gotcha. Okay. So, but that does not answer the question. The question is, well, what do you feel about stock trading in Congress, and what will you do about it, and what will you do about these spouses that are trading? Do you think they should? Will you ban it and outlaw it if you were in Congress? Is something that are you against?
I would say I would take every opportunity to name names and point out, use the press to just bring shame upon us all. I think that might work better than a law. I mean, do you trust
so
Congress to write a law to regulate Congress?
true.
But shame,
That is
I preach
what's
shame
happening right
against
now.
them. I go to their
But okay,
hometown.
so do you think that shame would work? And I'm going to say this because there are people that have an app that tracks Nancy Pelosi's stock trades. So when she makes a trade, there are people who pay money to follow what she does because they know that they will also make money. That if that's not shame, there is no shame. So do you think that it will work? Like, how much shame can you have if you made $270 million?
I am almost
Seems like a
speechless.
it
Absolutely.
seems a balance that I mean I look, and I understand what you're saying is promote it and put it out there, but there are there are very prolific stock traders out there. Again, there's a Nancy Pelosi app that follows her apps. Dan Crenshaw, who is a representative from Texas, just lost his primary, but he has made millions stock trading. He's a Republican. Ro Khanna, whose wife is a stock trader, he made anywhere from 35 to 53 million dollars last year, and is worth something like 70 million. So, but everybody says it's my spouse. So, is there shame?
I'm you have floored me. I salute you. I think next question.
All right, all right. I've made my point there. Stock trading is bad. We're gonna say stock trading is bad and move on. Tracy asks, we're gonna go into civil rights. Right now, the SAVE Act is in the Senate, and the SAVE Act is a bill that is going to create a verification for citizenship before you go to vote. My question to you is twofold. Number one, do you support photo ID to vote in general? And then the second question is, do you support the SAVE Act?
The answer to the SAVE Act is no. And what I would say about the photo ID, and one of the things I don't understand about the most strict constructionalists when it comes to the Constitution, that anytime you say, have a great idea, they will say, well, that's against the Constitution. Well, and just go with what the Constitution says. And if you don't like it, the remedy is to amend the Constitution. I think the only right way to change the basic rules for what's required to be a voter in the United States is to change the Constitution. The Constitution does not speak of anything about ID. First time I voted, Matt, I was a senior in high school. They had just changed the voting age to 18. It was Ohio was voting to adopt the lottery as a tool of raising taxes. And Methodists are lukewarm on murder. You shouldn't commit murder, but we believe gambling is a menace to society in all forms. So I went to the precinct, which was held in my high school. I asked, do you have to register to vote? And was told you don't. Said, well, I'd like to vote then. And one woman who knew me well said, John, you're not old enough to vote. And I said, I believe I am. And another woman who also was from my neighborhood says, yes, he is old enough to vote. And so I voted. I didn't register ahead of time. I provided no ID, but it was because I voted in my neighborhood and the precinct workers were people from my neighborhood. That's how it began. That's how it was in Lakeside, Ohio in 1973. So I don't know. So the hardcore people who want to try to keep people from voting, they're as bad as people doing inside trading. And we should be more concerned about making sure everybody gets to vote. And part of the solution is we need to know the people we live with so that the people in our precinct are people we know and we're not strangers with each other. So I propose we have a national picnic no, I'm just kidding. Neighborhood picnics in all neighborhoods.
Hey, I'm for it. I'm for it. So just to go through the Constitution, because you mentioned this, it said Article 1, Section 4 determines the times, place, and manner of elections. Congress can override or regulate if needed. The 15th Amendment in 1870 says cannot deny voting based on race. The 19th Amendment in 1920, women have the right to vote. The 24th Amendment in 1964, you cannot require a poll tax to vote. 26th Amendment in 1971, voting age is 18 plus. 14th Amendment in 1868 guarantees equal protection under the law used as voting rights cases. And then the states can create their own laws, but they also can create voter ID laws. So your statement here is, and this is ChatGPT, everybody, if I miss something, then blame technology or Elon or something, I don't know. So your set is, if you want to change this, then we have to amend the Constitution. You can't just do this willy-nilly passing laws like this. You have to amend the Constitution or else follow the Constitution verbatim.
Inasmuch that would be my initial reaction and proposal to the attempt to make it harder to get people to vote, especially since that's the game they want to play all the time when it's their policies that are being challenged.
Understood. And when you say they here, you mean the Republicans?
I probably do. Maybe the Whigs as well.
The who?
The Whigs.
The Whigs. All right, we're taking it back. Gotcha. Linda asks, Linda want to know, if somebody put up the articles of impeachment and you're in the House of Representatives, would you sign it would you sign the articles of impeachment, and would you support removing Trump from office?
I would strongly discourage that at this point of the game. I think it's much more important that we begin to plan on what kind of a country we're going to be after 2028. And, unless it was really a bipartisan act that would have a chance of action, I think it would be just kind of an unnecessary track down an unprofitable area. And I think our time and energy needs to be spent on more important things.
Understood. Understood. I'm gonna move over to foreign policy. It's what's on everybody's mind right now.
Mm.
And Jen Brush, who is the president of the Solon Democrats, she asked, and I'm gonna take these in four separate questions because they're four, I would say, big questions. What's your thoughts on Russia and Ukraine?
It is extremely sad that it has gone on this long. It's extremely, if there's anything that isn't an indictment on this present administration, not that the whole mess is his or theirs, but it was his cavalier declaration that he could solve it between the time he was elected and before he took office, and which clearly isn't the case. And so it's clearly a very complicated matter that is just wreaking havoc on many people's lives.
So, do you support Russia? Do you support Ukraine?
I
Do you
do not
support the United?
support Russia. I support. We should provide the patriots of the Ukraine with all the help possible. Obviously, we want to avoid further conflict, but that it's kind of shameful that we're now buying oil again from Russia because we have messed up in the Middle East.
What do you say to people that say, hey, you know what, we have so much to do here. We just talked about Medicaid and expanding Medicaid for all, but we keep sending billions to Ukraine. You think that's a worthy expense that the United States should be burdening?
I think if you don't stand up for people who get attacked by a tyrant like Putin, the world will just get so much worse.
Okay, that must lead us right to Iran then.
Pardon?
We just attacked Iran. So, oh, what do you say about the United States Iran attack? Are we? How do you feel? Yeah, how do you feel about that?
God help us. Yahweh help us. Somebody help us. I think it is what happens when, there's a good old boy in Brunswick, Ohio, great guy. He had an automobile shop, and he has a sign in his automobile shop: if you're not getting the results you want, you better hope it's your fault. Because if it's your fault, then you can do something about it. And if it's not your fault, you're going to be a victim of circumstances and you're going to have a miserable existence. I think the Democratic Party, it's easy to blame Donald Trump for whatever we want. But some of the problems are really the ineffective way in which the Democrats have functioned on a national level over the last 40 years. The fact that we used to be able to elect Democrats in Montana, we used to be able to elect Democrats in Nebraska and Iowa. We have so isolated ourselves into, we used to be able to elect Democrats on a statewide basis in Ohio, but we have so gotten connected with people who are so far out there. You mentioned someone who has an app. Not, she doesn't have an app, but there's an app that follows her trading. And
Yeah,
she led the Democratic Party from a supermajority to a distinct minority and did it again. I think we have to say, Donald Trump is not president because the American people are bad people. at least in part, Donald Trump is president because the Democrats have done a bad job and have created just great discontent and great distance between regular people in regular towns and those who are perceived to be special.
There's no, thank you for that. I have to I want to continue with that maybe in a little bit, but I want to get to these foreign policy questions and not keep us up until midnight. Um, okay, so just to clarify and cap it off for everybody, you support Ukraine. You don't think that the United States should have attacked Iran. I'm correct with that, correct?
I would have preferred we not, unless there's something that we have not been told.
Okay. How do you feel about the Israel Gaza conflict and how that's been going on?
Well, again, the root of the issue is so far in the past, and we have tried so many band-aid approaches, and Israel is a special country and has had their own special life of abuse, of being abused, and they should be a protected class, but they should not be a protected class people at the expense of someone else. There needs to be a way to move forward more gently than we have been. And we've been closer, but every time we get close, the human condition kicks in.
Mm-hmm. So if I was going to summarize what you said, I do this a lot. I apologize.
Right.
It's just for clarity for myself
Yeah.
and maybe some listeners. You support Israel's right to exist. You support the Jewish people. You understand the history, the trauma that is of the Jewish people. However, you think that Israel or the administration, the Netanyahu regime, has went too far in retaliation post October 7th.
Well, I think at some point, the horror of what we do to each other, someone has to stop the insanity, and at some point we have to admit that the other side has a right to exist. Are you an Ohio State football fan?
I'm in Ohio. I have to say yes, right? I'm more of a baseball fan, though.
But that's also a horrible state north of us. They have a right to their meager existence. We shouldn't obliterate them just because they're Michigan. I mean, it's a. You said something about common sense. I might describe myself as a bull moose Democrat, which just means there was something about Teddy Roosevelt and starting national parks on a grand scale that when I'm at a national park, I just think what a great country we live in, and we ought to celebrate it.
And that right there was bold. I mean, imagine saying, "Hey, as a government, we're just going to preserve all of this. You guys we're going to make this a thing." Like, that's a bold thing to do.
Oh, yes. And 120 years later, we still have the benefit of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that leadership like that can happen? Bold leadership like that can happen in this day and age?
Yes. I mean, and I think it can. And I think there are people who think it's happening now, but it's not good bold, in my opinion.
Okay. Understood. I don't think I have to clarify that one. Do you PAC money, super PAC money, and money from corporations is I've said this multiple times on my channel that, and people don't understand the scale of money in politics. In the 2024 election, there is more money in politics than the MLB and the NBA's revenue combined, and more money than all of the NFL. I mean, and that means all of the teams, all of the soda pops and hot dogs and beers, all of the jerseys, all of the salaries, all of the support staff, all of the money that came into that stadium for from advertisers to TV deals. There is more money in politics. I think money in politics is absolutely insane. Would you take money from a super PAC, and what do you think about money in politics?
I will not be taking money from super PACs. I guarantee that. I probably won't be offered any. I I do
Okay.
think I do think somewhere the American people, we need to wake up and start doing some of our own homework and not believing that anybody outside of our own community is actually going to typically do much to care for us, and that most solutions are going to be what we do with our in our neighborhood and not wait for and hope for Washington to solve it.
So to but you would money in politics is bad. I agree with you, local neighborhoods, but would you make it illegal to have this kind of big corporate money and super PAC money coming into politics?
Well, I don't know if with the present Supreme Court, if Congress has that power. We'd almost have to pass a constitutional amendment with this present Supreme Court, and I don't think it will have the votes. That's not going to be very practical. So
So this Citizen United called um money speech, and I always liked the concept of okay, let me take that back. I always liked the thought experiment of money being speech, and because when you have lots of money, it becomes a little bit interesting. Matt over here, if I wanted to buy $1,000 of ads for John running for Congress, I can do that. I don't have to talk to you. I just go and say John's the best guy, and I hand it out to everybody on the street. That's my speech. If I had more money, 10,000, $20,000, who's to tell me? But we have an issue when it's really rich people that spends 100 million, 200 million. Is there a limit to what money should be speech? Do you not believe in the idea of money speech? Do you not believe in the individual, or do you not believe in the corporation?
I I think there should be. I mean, I think how you in the with the present Supreme Court and their decision making, how you go back on the idea. I think American voters need to begin to say, these people, candidates, the people who are exercising their money, we need to stop listening to them. We need to stop buying their products. We need to we need to do something to rise up against it. But there's no easy solution to our present situation except, things like this expose it. And so, Matt, you need to keep exposing it. We all do.
You got it. You got it. We'll continue to expose it. But so
Let, well,
just
let's,
a
do
summary.
let's figure out something you could put on a sign and let's go to a football game and stand next to the guy with the John 3:16 sign and have a sign that says "Stop the money."
You got it. You absolutely got it. Um, John, for everybody, what is John's 3:16? Is it for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten
Yes.
son?
Yeah.
That's John 3:16. Okay.
Yeah. Very
Um,
good.
that last. Oh, think technology. My father's a pastor and as well. but I can't remember any of this stuff from church when I was a kid.
Neither do my sons.
Let's see here. Yeah, my dad's supposed to retire, and he just can't stop. He just can't stop.
Neither can I.
He's called to it.
That's
Yeah,
my kids say the same thing you do.
I mean, it's like dad, just relax, man. You don't have to keep giving sermons and talking to people, and it's fine. Whatever. He loves it. He loves it. It's great. I'm proud of him. Um, let's see here. Last question I have for you. I think we've got most of them down here. For the most part, we're hitting about an hour, and it's way past my bedtime. But one of the most important questions I think that we're having in modern times is about AI.
Mm.
AI replacing workers. AI, okay, not replacing, maybe replacing workers. AI doing jobs that are entry level. AI maybe taking white collar work. AI using a lot of resources. AI taking a lot of money, and also AI, if they take these jobs, taking the profits from not paying these workers and creating richer and richer companies and individuals. What do you think of AI in its current form and how we're dealing with it?
I think, like many technology issues, they are so above many of us. I will say there's an author who wrote a book on the history of humanity. It's it's called Sapien, and it's a philosophical, not religious book. And he speculates that Homo sapiens will be replaced by some technologically driven human-like entity. And so that
Sapiens. That was no, what was his name? Harari. What was his name?
I have the book
Sapien.
someplace, but yeah, it's a very,
Yuval Noah Harari. That's what it was.
very insightful. And I think it's like many things, the answer is not going to be anything that we as any politician or political group gets it right away, but it is something to constantly focus on. Was your dad pastor in a denomination or more of a independent?
Non
Okay,
non-denominational.
because like national denominations such as Methodists and Lutherans, they pass resolutions all the time saying how the world should exist. And they think just because they passed the resolution, now the world is going to exist that way. And it doesn't. And so I think sometimes our best ideas don't get implemented and we don't kind of pursue, we just put an idea out there, but we don't actually work on something. And I think to raise an issue and say, folks, this is something we need to be concerned about, and it's not going to be a quick fix, and it's going to be something we need to keep our eyes on for a long time, and not just federal government, but all kinds of institutions and entities.
So you're not opposed to the technology itself?
Um, there are ministers who've used it to help write sermons, and sometimes it's, I mean, it really is just what I understand. It's really a fast search engine that kind of get through a
Mm.
whole lot more material quicker. And if you ask it some questions, it does it's like it's really lazy if you think about it, because you don't even have to go through 5 or 6 different clicks to check out what 5 or 6 different people said about this. It can tell you in 30 seconds what 5 people said about it.
Oh, the times we live in. I'm 46,
Okay.
and when the internet came out, I remember that we were not allowed to use Google search, and then Wikipedia came out. You weren't allowed to use Wikipedia, as to start. And everybody said you have to go to the library and you look through the books. You have at least 3 or 4 primary sources, and that was now. You just said, well, see now how lazy we got. You have to have 4 or 5 clicks. Like how the world has changed. That for what do you mean you're not searching 4 or 5 clicks to get your resource sources anymore, you lazy? That's interesting. So so what would you okay, so I will say that AI is a little bit more than a search engine. It makes images and videos. It automates jobs and all these different things right now. And honestly, AI has been around for a long time, but more application specific. But now they're more looking at AI more for general purposes. It's more of like democratizing the AI technology to give to individuals so they can tailor it to their own specific needs, no matter what their business is. What would you do in Congress if you do see an uptick in unemployment? We do see that AI is taking white collar jobs and entry level jobs. Like, what do you think that? What do you think of that future, and how do you think you would navigate that?
Well, and I think at some point we do need to work not against anything, but work in such a way to give people the opportunity to work and earn and provide a living for themselves, for their dependents. I think that would be somehow, whatever the future is, to imagine that people will always have the opportunity to find worthwhile things to do that they can be compensated for and be able to provide for their families. That just would seem to be, a very important thing for a big picture thing. No matter what the technology becomes, that will always be something very important, to be able to have worthwhile things for you to do with your time and energy.
And Andrew Yang, who was a presidential candidate,
Yes.
I can't remember, 2020, I think. He thinks UBI would be a good idea. Would you think that if there is mass unemployment because the robots are taking over, do you think UBI would be a good idea?
Now that's universal guaranteed income.
Yeah, universal basic income, yes, sir.
I would say, this is just my crazy notion. I've thought of it, is people should be able to define their own job and then get compensated for doing it. But they would still be, you wouldn't just get a check. So you might decide you want to be in a community course. You want to sing barbershop quartet, and you get three of your friends together and you become a barbershop quartet and you go around town singing and you get paid for it. I think that would be better than just going to Joe's bar and spending the day drinking.
You I do like that idea. I would want to know how you would implement that and make people responsible for actually doing the work, which actually gives people, like you said, gives people meaning and a purpose in life. To not have a purpose will get people very depressed and go down very dark paths very quickly. And jobs do give people a lot of purpose. That thriving to get better at your job or make more money or move to the next level or get something at the end of the light at the end of the tunnel of even having the job is a purpose. So I like that idea. Um, what and I just lost my thought from that. Thank you very much for. um, but yes. So anyway, AI is one of those things that we are really going to be tackling, and I think that anybody in Congress is going to have to really figure out how to move that needle in the future. So, John, we are about at an hour. I want to say thank you. We are at an hour.
Yep.
I want to say thank you for coming on and talking about different policies that people asked. Everyone, this is John Butchko, who is running for Ohio's 7th District as a candidate for Congress, U.S. Congress. John, what final words would you like to tell anybody that's watching?
When I go to the Marks in Brooklyn, Ohio, 44144 zip code, which is the zip code I live in, I am just amazed at the good workers there, the good service I get there, the friendliness of people. The town of Brooklyn has changed tremendously in the last 15, 20 years. It has become a very much a diverse community, not huge, but significant. I just am amazed at the willingness of people to work. And I don't think Marx is on the highest end of the pay scale, But I just think the average American person is a tremendous person who works hard and cares for community. And we need a government that cares about us and not a government that's interested in, seriously, they're making 270, 50 million, those kind of money off of being Congress and the information. That's shameful. I think we needed a better government than one that's just trying to line its own pocket. If what you're saying is true, Matt, you truly have shocked me, Matt. Thank you very much.
I've shocked you. Thank you. I appreciate that. John, thank you for coming on, and everybody else, thank you for joining us and with this candidate forum for Ohio's 7th District. Have a good night, John.
Take care.